Hi everyone, welcome to Leisrealtalk. Um, Actually, before I hit the button live, I just saw news that Henry Kissinger just died at age 100. So I don't know if you guys know that. So well, that's news. All right. Well, thank you for waiting for me. I had something scheduled yesterday, so I was not able to do this live stream yesterday. But I'm glad that I postponed it for one more day because I discovered more today. So I think this discussion is a lot more interesting than if we did it yesterday. So we're going to answer the question. Hopefully, by the end of the program, are China's large banks running out of money, or are they protesting to the central government? Um, or another subtitle, another title I wrote for my program tonight is how Beijing is caught between local government debts, the real estate crisis, and potentially rebellious banks. So let me first give you the incident that triggered this uh, analysis, shall we say. So on the last day of October, October 31st, a brief cash squeeze rocked China's financial market or money markets. Around 3 p.m. in the afternoon, China's overnight interbank lending rate kept climbing. At one point, it soared to 50%. 50%, of course, annual rate, but still it's tremendous. Overnight interbank loan reflects the cost of borrowing and lending among banks, which has been under 3% historically. About 10 years ago, on June 20th, 2013, China's overnight interbank lending or lending rate reached an unprecedented 30%. Now it broke through 30% and hit an all-time high of 50%. It means that the market has a liquidity problem and is extremely short of money, or was seriously short of money. Western media, including Bloomberg, attributed the incident to Beijing's deluge of large government bond sales. And China's former deputy governor of Bank of China, Wang Yongli, said that the reasons for this unexpected episode was very complex. He attributed to high demand for cash, to month-end clearing and month-end financial contributions, as well as the sales of large government bonds. I've heard insiders within the banking industry in China reveal that frustrated Chinese bankers might have staged a protest to the central government. Now, this isn't the first time. If that's true, it wouldn't be the first time the Chinese financial sector staged a protest. The famous stock market crash of 2015 was called a financial coup d'etat against Xi Jinping in his early years as the CCP leader. I made a video on that. So I asked my editor to post the link in the description. So I don't know if he has done that. If not, Chris, please do that. I made a video about 2 years ago. It explained the whole incident. So you can take a look at that. So tonight I'll present everything I know so that you can make a decision, or our group can collectively make a decision about what we think, whether it's truly a liquidity problem or something else. So I'll talk about, first I'll give you a brief background or synopsis or a summary of the real cause of local government debt and the real estate crisis, because that's really important. I've talked about the local government debt and the real estate crisis in a number of videos. I've made videos on that as well. Maybe we should paste the links as well. But tonight I'll give you a brief summary, and so that we understand, Beijing's solutions better. Then I'll talk about Beijing's dilemma and its solutions, and then we'll take a look at some numbers to get to the question: are the banks running out of money, or are they staging a protest? There's no easy answer. I'm not trying to say that I have an answer, but at least I think it's good. It's food for thought. right? So what has caused the local government debt and the real estate crisis? Now, the biggest contributing factor of China's local government debt is CCP's highly centralized political system. CCP's central government demands absolute control, and this includes the control of the local governments and their budgets. And it's reflected in the distribution of revenues and expenses between central and local governments. Um, Let me add to this. So you can see the central government, the central government splits tax revenue with local governments. So if you look at the fiscal revenue split, it's like 53% and 47%. It's about half and half. But the expenses, the local governments pay more than 80% of the expenses. Um, so the central government always has a budget surplus, and the local government always have a shortfall. So unlike the United States, each state is responsible for balancing its own budget. The Chinese provinces cannot balance its budget and must depend on the central government's transfer payments to balance the budget. And this design, this fiscal budget design, allows the central government to control the local governments. But that presents a big problem. Um, the local governments are charged with GDP growth. And so, let me come back. So the local officials, you know, became creative in coming up various ways to find to find funding, right? The first source is selling land to real estate companies. Land concession makes up about a third of local government funding or revenue income. In order to maximize their proceeds or their land concession revenue, they've worked with the Chinese media, the banks, the developers in driving the real estate prices higher and higher. So China's homeowners have been funding local governments, right? And the second source is local government borrowing, and the local government financing vehicles, or LGFVs, thus came into being. It's off the book borrowing by the local government. Because it's not regulated, nobody knows for sure the total balance of this off the book borrowing by local government. According to one economist and his team that I've seen, the local government LGFV balance at the end of 2022 was 68 trillion RMB, which is a little under 10 trillion. Well, if you use the exchange rate at that time, it's about 10 trillion US dollars. So local governments bear the bulk of the Chinese government, bears not only the bulk of the expenses, it also bears the bulk of the government debt, right? It has 35 trillion explicit budget. That means on the book, the budget that's on their book. And then it also has the 68 trillion implicit budget. So in total, the local government has about over 100 trillion renminbi debt, right? So the local government shoulders over 100 trillion renminbi debt. But the central government, on the other hand, only has a very small debt. It's about 26 trillion. So this got Chinese economists thinking. In January, let me back off. So in January, China's former finance minister Liu Kun indicated that the central government wouldn't rescue local government for their credit crisis. He said, each parent should be responsible for their own kids, implying that each locality should be responsible for their own debt. However, China's economy isn't doing well overall. The real estate crisis has spread from smaller cities now to larger cities. Shenzhen, Shanghai, and Beijing's real estate prices have fallen 20%, 30%, and even 50% in some parts of Shenzhen. The China's large cities, the real estate prices have been holding strong, right? Because of the demand. But even in Shenzhen, in some communities, the prices have fallen 50 to 55%. So the impact on the smaller cities is even bigger. And many homeowners who have been paying mortgages but haven't seen their properties have taken to the street to voice their anger. Freedom House has documented 841 demonstrations against property developers since January of 2022. That's 841. I think the real numbers could be higher than that. And this doesn't include the protests by government employees, such as teachers, bus drivers, and medical professionals protesting publicly for their forced pay cuts. And also, in some cases, um, they haven't been paid for months. So Beijing's biggest worry right now is social stability. So despite the many signals the central government has sent that it's not going to rescue these troubled real estate developers and it's not going to bail out the local governments, it has changed its position. So since spring, Chinese economists have been exploring various options for the central governments to take on more debts to help the locals. Like I presented to you earlier, the central government debt is small. It has the capacity to take on more debts. And this isn't something that the central government wants to do, but it doesn't have any other choices. So having the central government taking on some of the local debts buys Beijing more time in putting off the ticking time bomb. So now let's talk about. So I just gave you the background of the local government debt, and then the real estate crisis, and the historical, and in the past 3 years, how the central government did not want to really help out the locals. But now it's forced to come up with a solution. So now let's talk about Beijing's dilemma and solution. So in June and July, the central government held meetings to discuss the solutions. And at the July Politburo meeting, it was July 24th, the CCP announced to effectively prevent, I'm reading this translation, to effectively prevent and resolve the risks of local debts and formulate and implement a package of solutions. So in July, it looks like it wants to offer some solutions. And the solutions are, you could have, it's more borrowing and more debt, except that this time the central government is taking on, is the one borrowing. So it has a three-pronged approach in helping the locals. First, the central government issued a 1 trillion yuan special treasury bond and will carry it as deficit on its book, on the central government's book. And the official purpose was for post-disaster reconstruction. But this is the first thing the central government did or has done to raise funds for the local governments. And the second, and also this is a big move, is allowing the localities to issue special refinancing bonds. And according to statistics done by mainland Chinese media, from October 6th to the 24th, the special refinancing bonds disclosed by 25 regions have exceeded 1 trillion yuan. So within that, it's less than 3 weeks, they've already, the amount they disclosed has already exceeded 1 trillion. The essence of this special refinancing bonds is to convert some of the hidden debts, the LGFVs, right, the off of the book debts, to convert them to become explicit debt, meaning they're on the book debt that's backed by the central government. And so it's what some people call a stopgap measure to restore the financing ability of the local governments so that they can borrow more money in the near future. So in essence, by having the central government taking on some of the local hidden debts, the local governments, has the capacity to borrow more money. And it's expected this special refinancing bond is expected to reach 1.5 trillion um, in total. Now, Beijing's third measure is the advance issuance of the 2024 incremental local government borrowing in 2023. I mean, they did that last year. They always move up, allocate the quota for next year and move it up to the year before. And the estimated maximum amount of early approval of the general and special uses, or this general and special use bonds. So the total amount that's or the maximum amount allowed for early approval exceeds 2 trillion yuan. So if you add up all three measures, right? The first is the treasury bond, the state treasury bond, and the second is special refinancing bonds, and the third is the early issuance of 2024 bonds or borrowing. If you add them all up, it's more than 4 trillion renminbi. And this is unprecedented, right? And we've never seen anything like this. Now the question is, how is CCP able to do this, right? Well, think about it. Because the Chinese people have, during the 3 years of pandemic, we've seen reports saying that the Chinese household savings have gone up. But the Chinese don't have anywhere to put their money. They stop buying real estate. And they're apprehensive about investing in securities because the stock markets are not doing well. So in a state-controlled economy, the Chinese don't have a lot of options. And therefore, central government-backed debt securities, looks appealing, becomes an option, or maybe the only option right now. So this is why, the Beijing, the central government is, has come up with these solutions because it is a lot of money. However, this created a serious liquidity problem for the Chinese banks and large banks in particular. So this brings us back to the incident which I mentioned at the beginning of this program. On October 31st, interbank overnight lending rate soared to 50%. And Bloomberg said that the Chinese government's massive debt sales or bond sales have drawn up the liquidity. And now you know what they're referring to, right? I mentioned you the massive amount of bond sales trying to rescue the local governments and the real estate. So I had a hard time trying to understand why, but it's almost like, I think by converting the implicit debt to explicit debt, it's almost like a sponge is being put into like a basin, absorbing the water, right? But still, I had questions because China's large banks don't work like Western commercial banks. They shouldn't have a liquidity problem because these large state-owned banks are like the extended arms of China's central banks, because China's banking and financial system is tightly controlled by the state, right? So these large state banks function like the extended arms of the central banks. And its objective isn't to make money, but carrying out the central government or central parties, the party's administrative orders. And also, China has a deflation problem, not an inflation. The central government can inject liquidity without worrying about inflation, and plus 50% interest rate. It just sounds outrageous, right? In a controlled economy, in a state-controlled banking system, 50% interest rate. It just sounds outrageous. So these questions have tortured me for days. And then I read that some insiders from within China's banking systems have revealed that some Chinese banks are protesting to the central government. Um, and I think why, right? Um, I asked my economist friend who has experiences working both in China and the US, and I asked him if it's possible that the liquidity crisis is staged. And he got excited and thought that it's very likely. Um, and he said that if he were still in China, he would certainly stage the protest. Um, so now let's talk about, is a liquidity problem or a staged protest. I have numbers to share with you. So several sources, let's talk about several sources have already revealed that Chinese banks are not happy with the direction they received from the central government. So about a week ago, we heard that China's financial regulators have drafted a white list of 50 property developers, including both state-backed and privately owned real estate companies. And the government agencies have asked large banks to provide financing to them in a variety of areas, including credit, debt, and equity financing. Banks are asked to provide unsecured, okay, the key word here is unsecured working capital loans to these real estate companies. And the 50 companies, the 50 real estate developers have already been divided up and assigned to the large state-owned banks, and each bank has been assigned to um, like seven to eight, 6 to 8 developers. Um, so, but but almost everyone is saying that tying China's large banks to the falling real estate sector is suicidal. Um, the analogy, the best analogy I saw was this. It says that the China's real estate sector is like a dying patient in ICU, right? And now, I shouldn't say die, well, is a terminally ill, someone with a terminal disease is in an IC, being treated in an ICU. And now the CCP is asking the patient to go to a dance party with a full life support, with whatever life support the hospital, the ICU can provide him. And that life support that goes with the patient to the dance party is the large banks. So now I'm going to present you with some numbers, and you can decide on your own if it's staged or something else. So recently, more and more Chinese banks are experiencing default of bank uh, bank promissory notes, like bankers acceptance, or BA, or you call that bill of exchange, is a negotiable piece of paper that functions like a post-dated check. It's used by companies as a safe form of payment for large transactions, and the bank guarantees the payment. But if a bank missed a BA payment, it will be identified on the Shanghai Securities Exchange's, it's called Bills Exchange Accept. What is it called? It's called Acceptance Overdue. It's called Bankers Acceptance Overdue List. And there's this list. Let me show you. It's actually, and before March, this list did not exist because there was none. Like in February, there were none. And in, no, let me show it to you. I have a picture. So this is what it looks like. You have like this this default list, right? This default list, and so someone did a screenshots of of all the banks on that list. So let me tell you what happened. Okay, so in March, there were two banks that were on this list. April, it grew to 13. June was 32. July crossed the 100 mark. August was 217. September, 247. October, 249. So this is the screenshots of the 249. Of course, the person only did the first screen and the last screen. Um, so, but if you take a look at the list, I mean, they're really tiny. Like half are small regional banks, like the rural commercial banks, but the other half are large SOE banks, like ICBC, right? Industrial and Commercial Bank of China, Construction Bank, Bank of China, and the Agricultural Bank. So now the occasional, let me talk about the occasional default on promissory notes. I'm mispronouncing these words. Promissory notes doesn't indicate occasional default doesn't indicate the bank has liquidity problem, because it can be an operational mistake, like some bank employees missed payment by certain due date. Like we can miss our credit card payment because we forget, and it's not because we have a credit crisis, like we don't have money in the bank. The banks can remedy the situation by issuing a statement explaining the situation after making the payment, and thus gets removed from the list. Like this bank saying that it does not have a credit crisis because it's an operational mistake. Here's another notice that it's saying that it's a operational mistake. However, the banks that consistently have defaulted BA payments will get on the security exchanges, or the Shanghai, I think it's Shanghai Security Exchanges, it's called permanent default list. And this list first appeared in July. Let me show it to you. Where here? Okay, so the first one, it actually appeared in August 1. So this is called the persistent overdue list. So in August, it had only one bank. That's China Construction Bank, right? It's Suzhou branch. And then in September, it had two, both ICBC branches. And then it grew to 16 in October. And of the 16, 11. Did I say 11? Was it 11? I can't. I covered 11. Yes, it is 11. So 11 out of the 16 were ICBC banks. And then this month, November, 17 out of the 28 banks are ICBC, and then you have 6 are rural commercial banks, and some are the other smaller banks. So if you look at these lists, China's largest bank, this is what's troubling. China's largest bank, the ICBC bank. Let me make this. Maybe we could do this. Has been consistently on this list, meaning it has consistently appearing on this default list. Now, ICBC is China's largest bank, and it also claims to be the world's largest bank by asset. So the question is, how could these large state-owned banks that work for the government, like an extension of the central banks, have a liquidity problem? And the timing, if you look at the timing, it started in July. And the timing is also troubling because it's perfectly in line. It started right after the Politburo announced the solution to help the local government debt. Now, Chinese law, the CCP law holds Chinese banks liable for delinquent loans. So it's a serious matter. It's not like the Chinese banks can just issue arbitrary loans without worrying about um, having bad loans, right? So when the banks are ordered, so when the bank, if you think about it, when the banks are ordered to be tied to a dying patient and then must go to a dance party with this dying patient um, as his life support, you can imagine the resistance. Even Reuters had an article saying that the Chinese banks are resisting the central government's mandate on uh, providing financing options, providing financing to the 50 whitelisted real estate companies. So it's a widely recognized um, problem. So here we have a question. So are China's large banks running out of money? So are, the numbers, these banks that I've shown you that's on the screen, are they really running out of money because of a liquidity problem? Or have they staged a liquidity crisis to protest to the central government? Or is it the combination of two? So let's have a survey. Chris, can you post the survey? And let's have a vote. Let's see what people think. But no matter what it is, it's telling us that China's banking or the financial sector is going to be volatile, highly volatile in the next few months. Because either way, whether it's running out of money or it's staging a protest, it does not does not look good, and we should certainly keep an eye on that. So let's see what people say. I'm just curious what your opinion is. I think it's hard to draw any conclusions here because when I was discussing with my economist friend who is very familiar with China's you know financial system, and he said we cannot ignore. He said, this we definitely need to give it some good. We need to give it some good. Uh, how to say? We need to keep it in our mind as a highly possible um, reason for this cash squeeze that we saw on the last day of October. All right, let's see what people say. So, do we have a vote? I can't see the. I can't see the. Let me get rid of this screen. I cannot see the survey results. I have to go to YouTube to see that. Let me see. Do I see that? I don't see that. Oh. So, well, I will need your help to post the results for me. Oh, I want to say, I was talking to a fan over the weekend, and I was asking her about the pronunciation. I said, well, I have, remember we were talking about furry and fury? I think, Nick, are you there? You're there? And I was so confused. I said, isn't it furry, Furry? And she said, no, it's fury, Fury. But she said, because you kept calling him furry and he changed his name to Furry and not Fury. So my apology to you, Nick. Uh, I will call you Fury now because uh, I need to work on my pronunciation so that you guys don't change your names for me. So, but I was laughing. I said, "Wow, I didn't realize I mispronounced his name, and he changed his name to Furry now for me." Okay, hi Nick. Oh, there you are. Okay, Fury, Nick Fury. Okay, thank you. All right, so what's the vote? 40% liquidity. 40% think it's a liquidity problem, 4% think it's staged, and 58% think it's combination. Okay. Okay. Yeah. All right. Okay. All right. Well, that's our I'm not surprised by the results. I think that's what I had expected. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I'm very happy with this balanced view in this community. Um if we have like 80% people believe that it's staged, I would be worried. I would be really worried. Um Or the other way, if 80% believe that it's purely liquidity, I will also be worried. So I think I could tell from these statistics or from this survey results that this community is highly rational. People have their independent thinking, and this is what makes me most happy. I'm glad that we could have a very rational discussion. Okay, all right. So that's all. That's what I want to say. Okay, Angel, I feel like it's a real liquidity crisis late, mostly because of the reduction in demand for Chinese products and the diplomatic approach of the CCPs ruining trade relations largely globally. Okay, all right, okay, all right. Lei, does the battery in your fire alarm needs to be replaced? Thank you for thank you for I didn't have time. I was going to do that after this because I was thank you for for noticing that. I know it's annoying. It's in the other room. I know it keeps beeping. Sorry. I want a McFlurry. um okay. All right. All right. Okay. Smoke detector. All right. If that's annoying to you, then I won't. Oh, Jeff Ramos has a super question. Lay, I have this MasterCard at 50% interest rate. Would you take it? No. Oh, no, I would not. No, thank you. All right. Okay. Well, but thank you for the donation. I know um I know the beeping sound is annoying, so I will cut this program short. But thank you very much for joining me. If there aren't any other questions, I'll end it here. Do I have another super chat question? Oh, I do. Hold on, let me see. From Brian Cow. Well, thank you for the donation. That wasn't a question. Let me see. Um, all right, that's all. Thank you. All right, I'll see you later in a few days. Bye bye.